So Endgame is finally here, not to be confused with Ender's Game. Ugh. I'm not sure why they felt the need to make another Avengers movie. Thanos already saved the universe. Hooray! Before going in to see Infinity War, I was actually really worried they'd mess it up. There were so many elements at play that it could easily turn into a mess, and I'd consider only around half of the MCU to be anywhere above decent in terms of quality. On the other hand, I was confident Endgame would be fantastic, but out of the two, Infinity War is the superior film. Overall, Endgame is a good movie. It had great action sequences, lots of fun scenes, and some touching character moments. The core story is where everything gets a little rocky, but I was having enough fun that it didn't really bother me. If I wasn't enjoying myself so much, I can see some of these core story elements really irritating me. But I was having fun, so who cares? I was expecting them to leave things open-ended for future films, but Endgame had a finality to it. It felt like a true ending. I genuinely have no clue where the MCU plans to go from here. I know Guardians 3 is planned for a couple of years from now, and I can't wait for that. I'm so glad Disney came to their senses and rehired James Gunn. But other than that, I have no idea what they've got planned for the next group of films. Hopefully it's not including Captain Marvel. They had a couple of tiny threads that could lead into future films, but Endgame had a final, definitive ending. It felt like everything was resolved. Any future movies would almost have to rebuild the MCU from scratch again. It's like completely starting over. The film is made up of 3 distinct parts, and each one of those is vastly different. The first act sees the remaining characters from the previous film coming to terms with what happened in Infinity War. It's quite dark and miserable. I really enjoyed it. It was great seeing how the different characters were coping with what happened, or not coping as the case may be. The second act relies on your knowledge of the previous films. If you haven't seen many of the other MCU films, you'll be able to get by, but you'll have a much greater appreciation if you've seen the other movies. The second act was the weakest out of the 3. It's where the story really kicks in, and as such, it's where a lot of the plot holes, plot contrivances, and questionable character logic appears. And that's not to say the film was bad. I had a lot of fun with it, but it was easily the weakest part of the film. I'm sure everyone's seen this film by now, but I wanted to throw up a spoiler warning for anyone who hasn't seen it yet. Skip to this time code to avoid spoilers. So it's around the second act when they introduce a major plot device. Thanos destroyed the Infinity Stones early in the movie, which makes perfect sense. He achieved his goal and doesn't need them anymore, and having them around is a liability because someone could get hold of them and undo everything that he achieved. And then Thor kills Thanos. That whole section really surprised me, and from there I had no idea where the film was going to go. In my wildest dreams, I didn't think they'd resort to time travel outside of using the Infinity Stones. That's such an outlandish idea, and it's very rarely done well. The explanations for how this time travel works are a bit shaky. I've seen the film twice now, and I'm still not sure about how it was all supposed to work. So either I don't understand because I'm an idiot, they did a bad job of explaining it, or it just doesn't make sense. Or it could be a combination of all 3. I really enjoyed the film, but I can see some people being put off by the issues this time travel stuff causes. Not least Tony Stark figuring out how time travel worked in what seemed like 5 minutes. Yeah, I understand the film is 3 hours long, but a bit more time with him trying to work it all out would have at least made it seem like it was a difficult thing to do. Don't get me wrong, I did really enjoy the film. Perhaps I've come to appreciate these Marvel movies more and become a bit soft on them, but it's undeniable the narrative has issues. But as long as you're having fun, who cares, right? I mean, Terminator 2 has plot holes, but no one worries about them because they're having too much fun. And while the time travel stuff was messy, it opened the film up to having wacky adventures, sending these characters back in time to different movies. It was loads of fun. I loved seeing the Guardians of the Galaxy intro again, and all the Captain America stuff and those scenes from the original Avengers movie. It was great. I can't believe War Machine suggested killing Thanos as a baby. What a guy. I have to say it took me a long time to get used to the changes they made to the Hulk, where they kept Bruce Banner's personality and put it in the physique of the Hulk. It did feel like a natural progression of the character when you consider how he's changed through the series. However, I did find it a bit difficult to get on board with. One of the fun things about the Hulk is all that rage and power, and we don't really see that in this film. I guess I am asking for more mindless destruction, but it's a lot of fun. I loved what they did with the Hulk in Thor Ragnarok, and I was hoping to see more of that. Because Thanos is killed at the start, when the Avengers fight him at the end of the film, he's more or less a new character. The younger version of Thanos they fight at the end isn't the one responsible for killing off half the universe, and so he doesn't have that same relationship with the Avengers as he did in Infinity War. As such, you lose some of that personal drama between Thanos and the Avengers. It loses a bit of its emotional weight. Still, I liked how the younger version thought about the failings of the original Thanos and decided he would have to destroy the entire universe and start over. What? Killing half of all life wasn't enough for you? For me, that's when Thanos turned truly evil, and I loved it.
Listen, I am not nice, I am not kind, and I am not wonderful.
I found the big battle at the end to be a lot of fun. It had all the spectacle and explosions you'd expect from a Marvel movie. The only thing that spoiled it was that one shot of all the women together, which stuck out like a sore thumb. There was a huge war going on, and these characters are all over the battlefield, and then Spider-Man needs help and every woman in the movie shows up to pose in front of the camera. And no, I'm not saying you can't have women fighting together or whatever. That would have been fine. Captain Marvel was destroying that spaceship, Scarlet Witch was off fighting those monster things somewhere in the background, the Valkyrie from Thor Ragnarok was flying around on a horse somewhere, I couldn't even see the Wasp, and God knows what the hell Mantis was doing, and then all of a sudden we get this long tracking shot of all the females in the entire film. I mean, Spider-Man was in the shot too, but he was sort of laying down in the background and then someone stepped in front of him. It only stood out because it was so forced. If you want to do girl power, okay, whatever. The characters were all spread out over other parts of the battlefield, and then they all lined up at exactly the same time to pose for a photo that nobody took. I don't know why they felt the need to force this in. Perhaps it was a last minute thing. There was plenty of ways they could have done it organically, and it's not like they had a whole shot of all the men from the film together, which I'm glad of, come to think of it. I don't know, it just stood out as weird. At no other time in the entire movie did I question the editing or the shot composition. It was an unnatural way to get those characters in a shot together. My biggest worry about Endgame was Captain Marvel. I didn't like her in her solo movie, and it would have felt pretty underwhelming if this character, and I hesitate to use the word character, just showed up at the end and saved the day. I thought perhaps they might do something good with her. Endgame is directed and written by the same people that made Captain America Civil War, and Black Panther was fantastic in that. It wasn't until his solo outing that he was turned into a bland and boring protagonist. So I thought these guys might be able to do something interesting with Captain Marvel, but honestly, she's barely in the film at all.
I like that.
And she has no point even being in the film. You could delete her from the movie and not only would nothing change, but the film would be stronger for it. Honestly, I don't know why they didn't save the Captain Marvel solo film for after Endgame. It would have freed them up to make a more interesting story that wasn't held back by having to link it to the rest of the current MCU. If they would have saved it until after Endgame, they could have done whatever they wanted. Or maybe they did do whatever they wanted and it just turned out crap. But as it stands, she doesn't really have a point in this film, but she's hardly in it either, so that's good. Avengers Endgame was a lot of fun. It never once felt like it was 3 hours long. It wasn't as good as Infinity War, which was a lot more focused and had stronger character moments. The Endgame story was messy in parts, but it felt like a love letter to the fans, and it was a solid conclusion. I'd rate this around an 8 out of 10. Yeah, I'm feeling generous. 8's a good solid number. Perhaps I'll make a video rating all of the MCU films if anyone is interested. Anyway, I'd love to know what you thought of the film. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.
What a guy.